2 years ago, you posted somewhere or read a comment from you somewhere that you were envying someone, engineering manager, that still had time to code. I don't think anyone codes anymore, or where are we going?
I now have time to code. Probably the biggest change. My GitHub contributions page have never been so green. In the past 10 years, super exciting time.
Welcome to the CTO Compass podcast. I'm your host, Mark Wormgoor, tech strategist and executive coach. In every episode, we meet tech leaders, from startup CTOs to enterprise CIOs, to explore what it means to lead in tech today. They share their stories and their lessons so that you can navigate your own journey in tech. Let's dive into today's episode. If you're a CTO right now, you're probably dealing with all of this AI madness as well. Do you build AI native teams? How do you set it up? How do you manage it? My guest actually delivered a workshop in Prague just last month, and he talked about exactly this. And it's all about the AI talent gap that everybody's talking about, but nobody really knows what to do. Alex Ponomarev, founder and CEO of Volt, and he's the author of Thriving in Engineering Substack. Alex, welcome to the show.
Hi, Mark. Thank you so much for having me today. We're all living in this transition phase where the whole industry is changing. And as engineering leaders, we get to experience it fully. So we're excited.
We're going to really get into that. Before we go into that, you've had 25 years, 22 years in engineering. I forget what it was exactly. What's your background? Where do you come from? And what do you do right now?
I started programming in BASIC when I was, I think, 4 years old. My grandpa was into radio engineering back in the day, and he built, we were living in Ukraine, he built his first ZX Spectrum from scraps. And he taught me a lot of things I know. Then I worked for many years as a software developer, as an engineer, a little bit as a graphics designer. And about 10 years ago, I transitioned into management because my goal was to have more impact, to achieve more. Like, there's only so much you could do alone before. I think that still stands true.
I love that. And I think 2 years ago, you posted somewhere or read a comment from you somewhere that you were envying someone, engineering manager, that still had time to code. I think we're now in 2026. I don't think anyone codes anymore. Or where are we going? What's happening?
A lot of things changed in the past couple of years. I now have time to code. That's, probably the biggest change. My GitHub contributions page have never been so green in the past 10 years. I'm extremely happy. No hand coding, of course, just like engineers on my team, but still lots of things get done. Super exciting time.
So what changed for you in the last 2 years from being this engineering manager to actually having time to code, or at least work with code?
I think the biggest difference is diving into somebody else's code was a huge mental cognitive load before. Now you have Claude Code. That's my tool of preference. As of today, that might change because there's very tight competition. But I'll give you just one example. Somebody sent me a GitHub repository today, and they asked for some advice. And it's a massive repository. There's a lot of things developed, like huge code base. Before, I would probably say no. Now I can do like high level analysis. I know what to look for. I can get an overview of what's in there, specific points to look at, and I can give them advice. And I'm familiar to some extent with their code base. And it happens on all levels. QA, management, like you don't have to remember or write down manually everything mentioned on a meeting, like dramatic changes.
I love that. And I think you're at the forefront of this. And I think, a lot of people are trying to figure out how this is all working and how to make it work. I think almost everyone's using Cloud Codes these days. I am as well. It's actually my tool of choice most of the day for almost anything, including preparing podcasts. But still, I think there's quite a few people that do that, and there's a lot more people that don't. And I think there's a big talent gap. How do you see that?
That I 100% agree with this. I would also say that there are many ways to use tools, especially flexible and sophisticated tools like Cloud Code. Um, in my mind, this talent gap is basically between the CVs and things like phrase and old claims like developers are cooked on Twitter or X and the reality. Because actually being productive, actually increasing velocity, actually shipping things to production is very different from, oh, I've built a cool game overnight. Look, here's a, I don't know, 20-second screencast. That's the gap. People who can, uh, actually get things done much faster and like, I'm not asking for 10x. I don't think it's possible. 1.5x would be nice, and covering all the adjacent areas. For example, before engineers were just responsible for code. Now, with all the tools, they take over from over everything from the architecture to DevOps, QA, and they can build things end to end. That's one gap. The other gap is the manager mentality and the expectations. That's the second gap.
Tell me about the second one. What is that?
Okay. We're engineering leaders. We should focus on what we can control and change. I think understanding how things work and how they change rapidly and knowing how to adapt yourself and your team is the most important thing that is missing in a lot of engineering managers, engineering leaders. The thing is, you have to, like, the mantra before was that you should focus on delegation. You should focus on describing things well, helping your team, being on the outside of the process and looking at things from the bird's eye view. Now, you kind of have to do the same, but also be inside the process. And it's very hard to grasp because, for example, you mentioned that you use Cloud Code day to day. And you're right that there's actually very few managers who are on that level and who have, I don't know, little side projects, who even installed OpenClaw, NanoClaw, and all these tools. You have to be like every week, every day, if you can afford this. We all have families. You have to be experimenting. You have to be trying things. You have to come to your engineers and saying, hey, did you know you can do this now? Did you know this works? If you don't do that, you don't have the right perspective. Either, there are two opposite polarities. Either you're in the skeptics camp and you say, well, all these tools, they work only 80%. We can't use them in production, something like that. Or you're overly optimistic and you're buying all the hype that is happening on the web and everywhere without really understanding the limitations and how you can actually use these tools in reality.
But let's say you're an engineering manager, and I think you rightfully said we all have families. Engineering managers lead a team 5 to 7, maybe even multiple engineering teams. That's taking them 40, 50, 60 hours a week. I don't know, it depends.
Yeah.
Where do you find the time to actually go and play with Cloud Codes, with OpenClaw, NanoClaw, whatever? And how do you work on the outside, actually managing and actually figure out what's going on in the world out there, because it's going so fast?
I don't have a good answer, to be honest. I think time is the only truly limited resource we have, unfortunately. So it's virtually impossible to create more time, and there's only so much compression you can achieve on certain things. Like you can cut your meetings in half, but when they're 15 minutes already, there's no more room to kind of cut them. So that's 100% a challenge. I don't have a formula. What I do is I work a lot now. I have multiple jobs basically. I have to wear the management hat and I have to wear the engineer hat. And I think we're seeing, in general, this motion. CTOs from well-known companies are becoming these forward deployed engineers and joining as ICs at Anthropic, at OpenAI. Maybe that's the solution to this. I don't know. For me, it's just working more, unfortunately. But also, I think there's an interesting feedback loop there, because as you start experimenting more, like this can be the beginning, just using your own personal time, unfortunately. But once you get a grasp of new tools and new possibilities, you can actually leverage your new knowledge, your new skill set to save yourself some time. For example, running meetings becomes much easier because, hey, you now know how to create these AI agents that take meeting transcripts, compare how the meetings went across multiple weeks. They tell you what to focus on. They tell you how to optimize things. So it's no longer your cognitive burden. You have this very powerful AI assistant. And you create, I don't know, 5, 10 assistants like that. One of them maybe looks at GitHub PRs and commits. The other tracks velocity. You start developing more detailed metrics that you couldn't track before, and that starts saving you time. Maybe that's the answer.
It does actually, but it takes time to get there. At least my experience, because automation, it sounds cool, but it does take time.
Yeah.
And then you have all these outside stakeholders as well, right? You have these CEOs, you have boards, a CTO is never standalone. You have all this outside pressure also that's just telling you to go do more and work with AI. What's your advice there?
To do more and work with AI. There's no other way, unfortunately, but you have to do it the right way. You can't be pushing back all the time. You can't be in the skeptics camp, because this is like maybe a couple years ago, it was an emerging technology. Now, this is our reality, and it's also evolving rapidly. And I think for the engineer leader, it's very unwise to turn their head in the other direction and say, "Oh, I'm busy with other things. I'm not gonna play with all these new toys." But you also, again, you can't be overly optimistic because it's still a very new technology. The tooling is not there. It's not mature enough to be this silver bullet that magically makes everyone productive and ships, I don't know, everything in 2 hours. So you have to be somewhere in the middle. You have to understand the stakeholders and the CEOs. You have to support them as an engineering leader, but also your expertise and your professional advice, it still matters. So you have to carefully nudge them in the right direction, manage their expectations, and so on.
Before we jump back in, here is something that I've learned from over 30 years of working in technology. The hardest part of leadership, it's not the technology, and it's not even the people or the teams. It's often that you're at it alone by yourself. There's no one in the room that fully gets what you're dealing with. There's no one that you can trust to discuss your decisions with. If that sounds familiar, find me on LinkedIn, Mark Wormgoor, and tell me what's in your mind. There's no pitch, just a discussion with somebody who's sat in that chair as well. Let's get back to it. I think the next step, or we're slowly getting to, well, everybody's been talking about agents for a year or so, but I think we're now finally getting to a point where you can actually have continuously running agents or scheduled agents that actually do useful work on schedule. How do you integrate those into the team, and how do you manage that on top of all of your engineers?
Well, we had that before. In our team, we've been working with autonomous agents for the past couple years, but it was much harder than now. Now we have, just a couple weeks ago, both OpenAI and Anthropic, they introduced their own infrastructure to run all these agents. There's no magic in agents from my perspective. There's a lot of work. It's not again not a silver bullet. It's still software, and it requires engineers and attention and planning and testing and this and that. But I would just think about them as very sophisticated combination of data, LLMs, and I don't know, scheduling like cron jobs, or triggering maybe, because you can have different triggers. And to get there, we have now for I think for a year now, we have this concept of skills, and the most important thing, every organization and the engineering teams as well, the most important thing to do is to start capturing those skills, start capturing the workflows, start capturing thinking, documenting all this. It was important before. It's not like it's a new thing. We knew this all along, just like about tests, TDD, and so on. But it became much easier, especially if you're using coding engines like Claude. Just don't forget to tell Claude to capture what you've just done in a text file, right? And also the value of the documentation, it just grows day by day, and it compounds.
And I'm going to ask you some tips, right? Because I mean, skills is easy if you're working solo on one code repository. Same with documentation. It's easy if you're working solo and it's all just locally marked down files. Where do you start if you're actually running one team or several teams of engineers in parallel? Where do you go? How?
Well, engineers know how to work with text files in a team environment. That technology has been around for quite a while, right? We have Git, we have GitHub, we have Bitbucket. So we had documentation and rules in Git repositories and SVN before, and it's been decades since we've been doing this, right? So you can work as a solo developer with skills, but you can also check the skills into the Git repo, and boom, they're shared with the team, and they can reuse them. For non-technical folks, you also have shared skills in Anthropic, and OpenAI they're not paying me, but I just love how they're building. They just have different perspectives. So Anthropic's platform allows you to share skills not only across the organization, but also across the tooling. So the same skill and the same data connectors will be available in Claude Code, Cowork, Claude.ai, and yeah, it's super easy to share.
You write a lot about, on Substack, you actually write a lot about engineering leadership. Like, what are your favorite posts of the last, or favorite topics that you've been writing about for the last couple of weeks, couple of months, and why?
Great question. My favorite topic of this year, I would say, is AI. I'm trying not to become yet another person who became AI pilled and writing about that. But most importantly is I'm trying to show engineering leaders and also everyone in tech that I don't think we should be afraid of the future, terrified, and we shouldn't think that we're being replaced, because human judgment is not going away. Our skills, they're not going away. No matter what everyone, or like what many people are trying to tell us. I just don't believe that we're going to need less engineers, less managers. But what I'm trying to demonstrate is that it still doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that you just sit and wait it out. You still need to adapt. Like, you're going to get replaced if all you do is the mechanical work. For example, as an engineering leader, you can be the person that, like a talking head. Somebody brings you data and reports. You conduct and facilitate the meetings. You prepare reports for your higher ups, and that's all you do. Sometimes, like, there are people like that. Unfortunately, I don't think it's like a bad position to be, but that's the mechanics. mechanics are going to get automated and replaced. And there's a lot of things you can do beyond that we didn't have time to do before in many teams because there were too many mechanics. And this applies across the board. That's what I'm trying to write about.
So no fear, and probably need more engineers than we do right now. I agree with that. How do we actually go and create new engineers? Because I think the first engineers to go right now, we need more senior engineers and less junior engineers. At least that's what it feels like. How do we still create those future engineering managers then?
Great question. Again, I don't think it's a new problem because before, as an engineering leader, you faced the same problem. You wanted only senior engineers typically, but it was always a very limited resource. So you were hiring junior engineers and you were looking for things for them to do where they don't break things too much. And they were doing things that mid-level and senior engineers didn't want to do. I don't think that changes much. The reason to hire junior people stays the same. The type of work they would do stays the same conceptually. But it would be different now because instead of, I don't know, refactoring some service nobody cares about for them to get some practice, they would maybe vibe code something. And you would teach them how to, I don't know, use codecs for review so that they don't do stupid mistakes, or you give them these skills that would improve their code. So in my opinion, it actually gets easier to work with junior engineers on one hand. The other thing is pre-AI, at least in our team, one of the reasons why we were hiring junior engineers is because they always had different perspective. Because I'm in my 40s now, since this year, and I can see how my mindset is changing. I hope I'm not set in my ways completely, but somebody who's still in college, they're like the sponge. They are trying everything new. They don't have to think about the consequences. They don't have to evaluate. They're like, oh, this is a cool thing. My friend is using it. I'm going to try it. Oh, I read a post about this. I'm going to try it. And I'm trying to do more of that myself. But hey, I have so many things to do, right? So I think this is another reason why we still need to hire junior engineers. And when we do, then they will learn and become senior engineers and so on. But yeah, there's this debate that we don't need engineers anymore, 10x engineer and so on. My perspective is that it's not about seniority, actually. It's about this elusive thing called agency that you can't really hire for, but that makes the whole difference.
So I was going to ask you exactly that question. I see so many engineers out there who are just, I'd say, standard full stack engineers. They've done Node.js, PHP backend, they've done all the standard front ends, and that's sort of their skill repository for 5 or 10 or 15 years. And there seems to be so many of them out there. So what actually is the skill that you should be learning? I mean, it's agency, but how do you learn?
Great question. And I apologize for my ums. I'm trying to teach myself not to do this. Great question. There's no definition for agency where it becomes a controlled variable. I think we all understand as engineering leaders how people with agency act and behave, but I personally haven't found a way to interview, for example, or have a trial task to actually see if someone has agency. But and that's what the workshop is about. There are things as engineering leaders we know and we can communicate about. Because pre-AI, again, engineers were mostly focused on one particular area in the software development process. And the workshop was precisely about that. If you have, for example, a ticket in Jira or whatever system you use, and you want this ticket to be completed to the point of pull request that is merged, you actually have to your team has to go through 15 steps because somebody has to look for similar tickets, somebody has to find the documentation, reproduce the bug, for example, if it's a bug. If it's a feature, somebody has to think it through, create the PRD, create the design. Then after like 4 or 5 steps, somebody goes and implements, and things don't stop there because then somebody else has to do QA, have the business analyst or whatnot have to look at the actual implementation and whether it matches the PRD. Somebody has to do code review, maybe multiple passes of code review. I don't know, tests needs to be written. So many things happen before the pull request gets merged. So even though agency is hard to measure and hard to see in advance, you can hire and you can teach your teams to have a wider perspective. So instead of, oh, I'm writing the code, prepare everything for me to write the code, and then take the code from me and do whatever you want, I don't care, widening their perspective and changing the ownership from I'm writing code to I'm working on this end to end, changes things dramatically. And then you can see whether people can actually handle things end to end or they're refusing, they just want to write code and they don't care.
Like I said, I love that. You actually have this workshop, you write on Substack about thriving in engineering. Why is that? Why do you do that?
Because everything I know is because of amazing online community, open source community. I grew up as in a small town in Ukraine. I didn't go to a big university. I didn't study at Stanford, or I don't have higher education at all. I'm self-taught person. I read immense amount of books, articles. I looked at the open source code. So I feel that it's my responsibility to give back. That's the primary reason.
Cool. And you've been doing this for a while. What are like the biggest lesson, if I ask you for your top 3 lessons that you just keep repeating or feel like you keep repeating over and over, what are they?
For my top 3 lessons for engineering leaders would be you have to get your hands dirty now, and you have to find time. You have to make time to experiment. B, you have to, in this era we're in, you have to be more like a junior engineer. You have to throw away everything you know, and you have to be trying all the cool and new things until something sticks. And number 3, don't believe that we don't need engineers anymore. Don't fire your senior engineers that are skeptical. You can show them the way by being an example.
A quick one before we continue. If you're getting something out of this conversation, please hit the subscribe button below. That way, other tech leaders can find us as well. I would really appreciate it. Let's get back to it. If we look at the future, then, and this is a very difficult question because nobody knows. I mean, this has been ChatGPT 3.5 came out 3.5 years ago, I think, from memory. How do you see the role of engineering leaders going towards the future? Because agents are going to get wider and wider used across businesses. It feels like almost everything is going to be AI first, AI native, whatever you want to call it. Where do engineering managers go and where do they fit in that future?
Somebody very smart wrote once that all problems in software industry are people problems. And I truly believe that. And I don't think any kind of organization, or including the engineering teams, are built around code, for example, or automation. So you can automate as much as you want, but you're still doing something for people, whether it's clients or stakeholders, by using help of other people. And maybe they were doing one thing 2 years ago, now they're doing a different thing, but it's still working with people, and that's what managers do. So maybe the nuances of the work change. Maybe we do less manual things. We were handwriting before, then we were typing on typewriters, then on the keyboard. Now we have meeting note taker typing for us. Okay, great. But the reason why we're typing stays the same. Same with automation. We don't do some things, we do other things now. We can focus on what matters. We free up our own time and time of our team members, and stakeholders have a little bit more time. And when we as humans have more time, we always find what to do. So we're just doing different things.
So the work is going to change. The people skills are, well, that means we need to build those people skills and those AI skills, engineering skills, of course, as well. So we actually need to learn more and more skills.
Again, the point of the workshop is that, sorry for interrupting you, to work with AI, you need people skills, you need soft skills, because, hey, you need to explain very well what you need. And as managers, as leaders, we've been doing this for ages. Who knows how to articulate what we want better? The other thing is we know how to work with expectations, because leaders develop this resistance for something not being done exactly the way that have been expected. Because we always think, a good leader thinks, okay, maybe I'm the issue. Maybe I haven't explained this well. I'll try one more time and I'll nudge them in the right direction, right? That's how you work with AI, with agents. Like, you just articulate what you want, you look at the result, you tweak, you nudge. Very similar to people.
I love that. I mean, in the past, as engineering leaders, we used to be able to we think something has to be implemented our way. We go to the junior and they didn't get it quite right. We would actually be able to correct them. With AI, that whole option is gone. So, I mean, the only mistake is us, and we can no longer blame, well, you can blame the AI, but it's not going to help. It's not going to learn from that anyway. I love that. So the most important skills are people skills. I do get the feeling, because, I mean, I'm slightly older than you, but we started in an age where, say, IT, software engineering maybe, was still quite simple. And it's gotten so complex over the past 20 years. We've had the luck of actually being able to grow along with that complexity. It feels if you're stepping in right now is just so incredibly complex. You think that's manageable for somebody that's, I don't know, 25 today?
I think it is. I don't think it was easier or harder, or it is easier or harder. It was just different. I'll give you an example. I have a friend who is also in his 40s. When he was a kid, his dad was also in radio engineering, and in school he worked with microelectronics and so on. And then his life took a completely different direction. So until his 40s, he had nothing to do with electronics, software, or anything like that. In December, he started using Cursor, and just it started with ChatGPT, and then I showed him Cursor, and he was like, "Oh, so this thing knows everything. I can just ask it anything, and it will explain it to me." Okay, that's cool. Now we're in May, so 6 months after. He creates like microelectronics projects, all sorts of things using Arduino, Carputer. That's like a very flexible platform you can build on. He writes firmwares with Cursor. He writes code. He shares this on GitHub. He has a YouTube channel, TikTok channel. Like, he has a whole community around him. And he had some prior knowledge about microelectronics, like the basics, but he closed the gap very quickly, and he was able to teach himself about so many things in such short period of time. And he started from the top, basically from vibe coding in microelectronics, from very, very simple things. He didn't care what happened inside. And then he just went deeper and deeper. And I think that's the difference, because now people, young people, they can basically follow the same path. When I was in my 20s, I was lucky to get into Ruby on Rails community. Ruby on Rails was a similar they took a similar approach, because you didn't have to know a lot about how to build software to actually build software, because you had scaffolding, you had a lot of boilerplate code, you had active record that eliminated any need to know SQL, so you could build things rapidly. They actually worked. You could ship software, and then once they hooked you, you started to learn the serious stuff. I think that's what AI is doing for everyone across all industries.
True. So actually, it becomes a lot easier to learn almost any skill, even microelectronics, just by asking Cursor, ChatGPT, whatever, Claude. I love that. For the people that are listening, any last advice? I love everything you said already, but any last single piece of advice that you would want to give them?
Be excited and be curious. Don't be scared.
Cool. Where do people go and find you?
They can find me on Substack. Thriving in Engineering is the newsletter. Subscribe, like, share, repost.
Thank you so much, Alex. It's been incredible having you on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mark. Thank you for having me.
As we wrap up another episode of the CTO Compass, thank you for taking the time to invest in you. The speed at which tech and AI develop is increasing, demanding a new era of leaders in tech. Leaders that can juggle team and culture, code and infra, cyber and compliance, all whilst working closely with board members and stakeholders. We're here to help you learn from others, set your own goals and navigate your own journey. And until next time, keep learning, keep pushing, and never stop